We've learned to recognize certain pauses, the kind that linger before a voice decides it's ready to speak. This one belonged to Isabel Rowan, not because she wanted attention, but because what happened to her never really let go. This is where she starts. The sound I remember most isn't my father's voice. It's the lock, a dull click behind me, too calm for what it meant. He stood in the doorway with his hand still on the knob and said, "If you walk out now, don't crawl back asking for help." I nodded once. I didn't trust my voice. I carried one bag to my car. My mother stayed quiet the way she always did, hands folded, eyes fixed on the floor. My father didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. He believed certainty was stronger than volume. I drove until the streetlights thinned and pulled over at a gas station. I sat there with the engine off, staring at the steering wheel. I said out loud, "Okay, then I won't." We've heard that moment described before, the space after someone leaves home. But what stood out was how still she became. The next morning, I woke up in my car with my phone buzzing. A message from my Aunt Beatrice. Just one line. "Come by when you can. I saved something for you." I didn't know then that it would change the direction of my life. I only knew that someone had noticed I was gone. Years later, people would tell me I'd been brave. That night, I wasn't. I was just tired of being told who I was allowed to become. If this story stays with you, let it stay quietly. Sometimes that's enough. I went back to the house 2 days later because Aunt Beatrice asked me to. She lived 15 minutes away, close enough that I'd driven past her place 100 times without stopping. She opened the door in slippers and a sweater that smelled faintly like laundry soap. She didn't hug me right away. She just looked at my face and said, "You look thinner already." "I'm fine," I told her. The words came out too quickly. She stepped aside and let me in. The kitchen was quiet except for the hum of the refrigerator. She poured coffee into a chipped mug and slid it toward me. I wrapped my hands around it and stared down. "He didn't mean it the way it sounded," she said gently. I laughed once, sharp and short. That's always what everyone says. She didn't argue. That's what made it harder. Later that afternoon, my father called. I hadn't expected him to. I stood in Beatrice's hallway with the phone pressed to my ear, watching dust drift through the sunlight. "You didn't have to leave like that," he said. His voice was steady, practiced. "We were talking. You told me not to come back." I answered. That wasn't what I meant. A pause. "You're young. You don't understand how the world works yet." I leaned against the wall and closed my eyes. I understand that I don't get to choose. As long as I'm here, another pause. Longer this time. Everything I've done is to protect you. From what? From ending up with nothing. I thought about the acceptance letter still folded in my bag. The one he hadn't bothered to read past the first line. "You're protecting me from becoming someone you don't respect." That's not fair. It's accurate. His breath came through the line, slow and controlled. "You'll see. Life has a way of teaching lessons. I'm already learning," I said. The call ended without goodbye. That night, Beatrice sat across from me at the small table by her window. She slid a narrow envelope toward me. Inside was the key she'd mentioned and a short note in her handwriting. "You don't owe anyone your life," she said quietly. "Not even family." I nodded, because it felt like the only thing holding me together. What I didn't say was how afraid I was that she might be wrong. The credit union sat between a nail salon and a closed bookstore. The sign flickered like it had given up trying to impress anyone. I almost drove past it, inside. The air smelled faintly of paper and floor cleaner. A woman behind the counter glanced up and smiled. "Can I help you? I'm here for a safety deposit box." I told her, sliding the key across the counter. My hand shook a little. I hated that it did. She checked my identification, nodded once, and motioned for me to follow. Her shoes squeaked softly down the hallway. We stopped at a narrow room lined with metal drawers. "Box 132, she said, unlocking it and setting the small case on the table. I'll be right outside. The door closed behind her. The quiet pressed in. I opened the box slowly. Inside was a velvet pouch, folded papers, and a small envelope with my name written in Aunt Beatrice's careful script. Not rushed, not dramatic. I opened the envelope first. If you're reading this, the note began. You've already done the hardest part. My throat tightened. I sat down. The papers underneath were neat. Receipts, restoration notes, photographs labeled in the margins. Someone had taken time with these. Someone had cared. When I opened the pouch, the silver caught the light. Heavy, cool, real. I whispered, "You planned all this." Her voice answered in my head the way it always did, calm and steady. "I planned for you to have options." I stayed there longer than I meant to, touching the edges of the documents, smoothing the folds. The woman knocked once before opening the door. All set. I nodded and closed the box. Yeah, I think so. As I walked back to my car, the envelope tucked safely into my bag, I felt something shift. Not confidence, not certainty. Just the sense that I wasn't standing on nothing anymore. The dealer's shop was quiet in the middle of the day. No music. Just the soft scrape of a chair and the faint click of a desk lamp being adjusted. A man with gray hair and sleeves rolled past his wrists looked up from a tray of rings. "You brought paperwork," he said, not smiling yet. "That's a good start." I set the folder on the counter and opened it. He didn't rush me. He watched my hands instead. "These belonged to my aunt." I told him. She kept records. He picked up the first page, then the second. His mouth tightened in a way that felt like focus, not doubt. "Provenance is clean," he said. "Restoration notes are thorough." I nodded. She was careful. He took the silver from the pouch and turned it under the light. Retro period. Early 40s. Solid weight. He glanced at me. "You know that already." I know enough to be nervous. That earned a small smile. He set the piece down and reached for a loop. "Nervous is fine. Careless is expensive." He worked in silence for a while. I sat on the edge of a chair and tried not to fidget. When he finished, he pushed the tray back toward me. "These are real," he said, "and they've been kept properly." I waited. "Market value, conservatively." He continued, "Somewhere between 310,000 and 350,000. My breath caught. I pressed my fingers together under the table. "That number isn't the interesting part," he added. "What's interesting is that you didn't sell them online last night. I didn't know where to start. You started here." He leaned back. "That tells me something." I swallowed. "What would you do?" He studied me for a moment, then slid the folder closer. "If you want to learn, you don't sell everything at once. You learn how to test metals properly. You learn restoration ethics. You learn how auctions actually work. And if I don't, then you sell them carefully and walk away with cash." He paused. "But you won't." I looked down at the silver. Then back up. "Why are you so sure he tapped the edge of the paperwork? Because people who plan like this don't do it by accident, and neither do the ones they trust to finish the job." When I left the shop, the folder felt heavier in my bag. Not because of what it was worth, because someone had finally taken it and me seriously. I didn't quit my job right away. I worked mornings at a print shop and spent afternoons at the dealer's place, cleaning trays, labeling envelopes, listening more than I spoke. "Slow down," he told me once when I reached for a polishing cloth too quickly. "Rushing leaves marks." I nodded and pulled my hand back. My wrists already ached. I didn't mind. At night, I spread papers across the small desk in my rented room. I read until the words blurred. Provenance chains, auction catalogs, old invoices written in careful cursive. I learned how to test silver properly, how to spot repairs done too cleanly, how to tell when something had been altered just enough to fool an untrained eye. When I sold my first piece, I didn't celebrate. I stared at the confirmation email for a long time, then closed my laptop and went to sleep. The dealer watched me for months before saying, "You don't talk about money much." I don't trust it yet. That's healthy. I learned when to sell and when to hold. I learned how to walk away from deals that felt wrong even when the numbers looked good. I registered a small gallery name that had nothing to do with me. No family name, no biography, just clean lines and neutral language. A woman at a fair once asked, "Who owns this?" I smiled politely. "It's privately held." That stayed true as things grew. Not fast, steady, a few carefully chosen pieces, a small network, people who didn't talk much but paid on time. My phone rang less than I expected. No headlines, no features. I preferred it that way. Years passed. I moved rooms, then apartments, then a space that had a door I could close. Once, my mother left a voicemail. She didn't ask for anything. She just said, "Your father's still worried you'll regret this." I deleted it without calling back. When the dealer retired, he shook my hand longer than necessary. "You don't need me anymore." "I know." "Good." He smiled. That was always the point. By the time I signed the lease on the office overlooking the bay, I had learned how to read contracts without flinching, how to separate inventory value from actual cash, how to let silence do some of the work in negotiations. On opening day, no one clapped. A courier dropped off a crate. I signed for it, rolled up my sleeves, and got back to work. I didn't hear about the debt from family. It came through paperwork. A thin envelope from a servicing firm landed on my desk one afternoon, mixed in with inventory receipts. The name on the header stopped me. My father's. I stared at it longer than I should have. Then I opened it. Late payments. Refinancing. A second lien layered onto the first. The language was clean. Impersonal. Numbers spelled out. Consequences implied. That night, my phone buzzed. My mother's name lit the screen. "We're fine," she said before I could speak. "Just tight for a while." "I know." A pause. How I read. I told her, "I pay attention." She exhaled slowly. "Your father doesn't want you worrying." "I'm not worrying." Weeks later, my asset manager leaned into my office doorway with a file tucked under his arm. "There's a package of distressed residential notes coming up for sale. One of them might be personal." I nodded once. "Bring it in." We sat across from each other while he laid out the terms. Clean transfer. Standard servicing reports. Nothing irregular. I signed without comment. "You sure?" he asked. "I'm sure." After that, the letters stopped coming to my parents' house. Not forgiveness. Just breathing room. Interest-only extensions approved. Late fees deferred. Quiet adjustments no one celebrated. At Thanksgiving, my father called. His voice sounded tired. "Things have been rough," he admitted. "But we'll manage. I know you will." He hesitated. "You don't need to fix this." "I'm not." That was true. Fixing meant control. I wasn't doing that. Months passed, then years. The balances grew anyway, new risks layered on top of old ones. Each report crossed my desk like a reminder I couldn't throw away. One afternoon, my manager returned. Slower this time, the protection windows closing. I leaned back in my chair. The bay outside was calm. "How long?" "Not long." I nodded. "Then it's time." He left without another word. That night, I sat alone in the office after everyone else had gone. I pulled out the original note from my aunt and ran my thumb along the crease. I didn't save them because I wanted power. I waited because I needed the truth to arrive on its own. They arrived 10 minutes early. My assistant glanced at me from the doorway, eyebrows raised, then stepped aside to let them through. My mother walked in first. She paused just inside the threshold, her hand still on her purse strap. Her eyes moved slowly from the windows, to the desk, to the framed certificates she couldn't read from where she stood. My father followed, shoulders squared, jaw set. He looked around once, then frowned. "This isn't a shop." No, I said. It's not. My sister stayed near the door. She kept twisting her ring, over and over, like she was trying to work something loose. My father cleared his throat. So where are we? I gestured toward the chairs across from my desk. Sit. We'll talk. He didn't move right away. You work here, I lease the space. I answered. My firm operates out of it. His eyes narrowed. Your firm. Yes. He laughed once. Sharp. Since when? Since you stopped asking. That landed heavier than I expected. My mother finally sat down, smoothing her skirt. Isabel, she began. We didn't come here to argue. I know. My father pulled out a chair and dropped into it. Then explain this, he said, sweeping his hand around. All of this. Why we're finding out now. I took a breath. Because you didn't want updates. You wanted outcomes. That's not fair. It's accurate. He leaned forward. You let us think you were struggling. I let you think what you already believed. My sister spoke up, her voice tight. We thought you were barely getting by. I nodded. I was careful. With us, my father snapped. Or from us. The room went quiet. The hum of the building filled the space between us. I stood and walked to the window. Then back. I didn't hide. I stopped explaining myself. My mother pressed her lips together. Why bring us here now? I slid a folder across the desk, because the situation's reached a point where silence isn't helping anyone. My father opened it. His face changed as he read. Lines deepened. His hands tightened around the paper. This can't be right. It is. He looked up, eyes sharp. You knew. Yes. You watched us sink. I kept you afloat longer than you realize. He stood abruptly. You had no right. I had every legal one. My sister whispered. Is this about punishment? I met her gaze. It's about reality. My father's voice dropped. You think sitting in this office makes you better than us. No, I said. It means I'm responsible for what happens next. My mother reached for his arm. Sit down. He didn't at first. Then he did. The folder lay open between us, pages spread like something fragile. Outside, the bay looked calm. Inside, no one spoke. My father closed the folder and pushed it back toward me. His knuckles had gone pale. So this is it, he said. You get to decide whether we lose the house. I don't decide alone. I replied. The structure does. He scoffed. That's a convenient way to say control. I stayed where I was. Control would have been forcing changes years ago. This is containment. My mother shifted in her chair. What does that mean? She asked quietly. Eyes fixed on the edge of the desk. It means the debt gets stabilized, I said. Refinanced under a trust arrangement. No more rolling risk forward. My sister leaned in. And the amount just over $2 million. All in. She let out a breath she'd been holding. That's everything. Yes. My father laughed again, but this time there was no sharpness in it. You watched all of this pile up. You let it. I didn't look away. I stepped in every time it crossed into immediate loss. Interest-only extensions. Deferred penalties. Enough to keep you standing. You could have told us. And then what? I said. You would have listened. He opened his mouth, then closed it. My mother spoke instead. What do you want from us? I took a moment. Not because I hadn't thought about it, because I wanted to say it cleanly. I'm not erasing the debt. I said. I'm restructuring it. There will be oversight from an independent advisor. No more private fixes. No more pretending it'll work itself out. My father leaned back, staring at the ceiling. And if I say no, then the process continues without my involvement. My sister's voice shook. You'd let it happen. I'd let reality happen. I answered. I won't manage your choices anymore. Silence settled in again. My mother reached for my hand, then stopped halfway, unsure. "We never meant to push you away," she said. "I know." My father lowered his gaze. "I thought I was protecting you." "I know," I said again. "But protection without listening turns into something else." He rubbed his face with both hands. "What happens now?" I slid another document forward. "You take these. You read them. You talk to people who aren't me. Then you decide. And you," he said, looking up, "what do you do?" "I stay here," I said, "and I don't chase you anymore." No one moved. The papers sat between us, heavy and quiet, waiting to be touched. They didn't sign anything that day. They left the office quietly. My mother paused at the door, turned back once, and said, "I'm glad you're okay." That was all. My father nodded without looking at me. My sister gave a small, tired smile, like someone who'd just set something heavy down but wasn't sure it would stay there. After they were gone, I sat at my desk longer than I needed to. The room felt bigger without them in it. Not empty, just still. The paperwork stayed where it was. I didn't touch it. I poured myself a glass of water and stood by the window until the light shifted across the bay. Weeks passed, then months. The house didn't go into foreclosure. The trust took shape. The advisor called with updates I listened to but didn't manage. Therapy started and started again. My father never apologized outright. One morning, over coffee, he said, "I didn't know how else to be a father." I nodded. That was as close as it got. My mother started spending afternoons out of the house. My sister stopped calling in a panic. I kept working. The gallery grew quietly. New pieces came in. Old ones moved on. One evening, after everyone else had left, I opened the small box on my desk. Inside was the locket Aunt Beatrice had kept. I flipped it open and ran my thumb over the edge of the note she'd written years ago. I used to think strength meant surviving what I was given. Now I know it means choosing what I carry forward. Isabel Rowan doesn't wait for permission anymore. She doesn't need to. At Revenge Pulse, we stay with the stories that end this way. Not loud, not clean, just honest enough to last.